I never planned on stopping near the old fire lookout that night. I was driving through the rural backroads of Richford County on my way to visit a friend when my GPS took me onto a washed-out logging route that shouldn't have existed anymore. My tank was almost empty, my phone was close to dying, and the sun was sinking behind a row of crooked pines. That's when I saw the tower. It rose above the treeline like a skeleton, its metal legs rusted orange, and its cabin at the top missing half its boards. It looked abandoned for decades, the kind of place hunters use as a landmark but never dare to enter. Still, I stopped. Something about it felt wrong, like a magnet you know you shouldn't touch but still reach for. I climbed the steps, carefully at first, then quicker as the daylight thinned. The air changed as I reached the top, quiet in a way I didn't like. Inside, the lookout smelled of cold metal and dust. I expected old maps, maybe a busted radio, but instead I found a desk covered in modern equipment, a sleek black monitor, a headset, a portable generator humming in the corner. Most unsettling of all, the monitor was on. It displayed a grid of camera feeds, dozens of them, showing the surrounding forest from angles impossible to reach without cutting into private land. Some cameras had night vision overlays. Some showed only static. But one was perfectly clear, a live feed of my car, parked below the tower. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The camera angle was from somewhere above the lookout, maybe on a tree or pole I didn't notice. I backed away, but the screen suddenly switched to another feed, one pointing directly at the door behind me. I watched myself on the monitor, standing frozen like an idiot. Then text appeared across the bottom of the screen. Unauthorized entry recorded. Hold position. I spun around, expecting someone to be behind me, but the lookout was empty. The woods outside seemed normal, but the stillness was too perfect, as if the entire forest was waiting. I should have run right then, but fear can pin you in place more effectively than chains. I found a stack of printed documents on the desk, thick, water-resistant pages with labels like Field Observation Unit C, Active Surveillance Zones. Another packet listed coordinates across the county with coded notes beside them. Restricted, monitor daily, handler required. And the one that made my blood go cold. Terminate access point. As I flipped through the pages, the generator sputtered. The monitor glitched. For a split second, one feed showed a dark silhouette standing beside my car, tall, unmoving, head tilted toward the tower. When I turned to look out the window, nothing was there. But I no longer believed what my own eyes were telling me. The generator cut out completely, the screen flickered off, and suddenly the whole tower felt like a trap someone had left open for me to wander into. That's when I heard footsteps on the staircase. Slow. Heavy. Coming up. I didn't think, I reacted. I ducked behind the desk and killed my flashlight, hoping the darkness would hide me. The footsteps kept climbing, steady and deliberate, metal groaning with each step. Whoever it was didn't hurry. They moved with the calm confidence of someone who belonged here. When the steps reached the top platform, the entire tower vibrated slightly. I held my breath. A silhouette blocked the narrow sliver of fading sky through the doorway. I waited for them to enter, to call out, to do something. But instead, the person just stood there. Silent. Listening. I could hear the faint crackle of a radio on their belt, and the low hum of some kind of device. Then they spoke, quiet, controlled, almost bored. Tower C confirmed breach. One subject inside. Logging. The footsteps shifted. I knew I had seconds. I crawled toward the far window, the one with the missing panel. If I timed it wrong, I'd fall 30 feet and break my legs. If I timed it right, I'd still have to run through a forest that apparently had more cameras than trees. I waited until the person stepped forward. Then I jumped. Branches slapped my arms as I tumbled down the side of the hill, rolling until dirt filled my mouth and my ribs fell bruised. I stumbled to my feet and bolted toward the car. Behind me, the lookout lights snapped on, bright, white, almost surgical. The silhouette stood in the doorway watching me run. My car groaned when I turned the key, but it started. I floored it. The logging road turned into a blur. But halfway down, My radio came alive with a harsh burst of static, followed by the same calm voice. Vehicle exiting zone. Camera teams, redirect. I didn't understand how he could reach my radio, or why he sounded closer now. Trees whipped past as I raced toward the main road, but something else caught my eye, small red lights blinking among the branches. Dozens of them. All moving. I think they were drones. Not commercial ones either. These were silent, fast, and coordinated. They followed me like a swarm. When I finally hit pavement and sped out of Ridgeford, they vanished all at once, as if crossing some invisible border they weren't allowed to follow beyond. I made it home hours later. I didn't sleep. Every time I glanced outside, I expected to see those red lights staring back. At sunrise, I checked news sites for any mention of secret surveillance in Ridgeford County. Nothing. Later that day, I tried to retrace the route on GPS. The logging road was gone. Completely erased, like it had never existed. That night, a single text came from an unknown number. "You were never here." I deleted it. But I still see red glints in the tree line near my backyard. And sometimes, just before dark, I swear I hear footsteps climbing metal stairs that aren't there. I had been working the fire lookout for just over 2 months, alone, in the remote backwoods of Blackwood Ridge. Summers here were usually uneventful, hours spent scanning the treetops for smoke, recording wind speeds and humidity, and listening to the occasional bird call. But that night, something felt off. I was settling in with my flashlight and notebook, flipping through the usual logs, when a flicker of orange caught my eye below the tower. At first, I assumed it was just a dying campfire, someone camping illegally despite the fire ban. But as I raised my binoculars, I noticed something strange. The fire wasn't small, and there were no campers around. Just a neatly stacked pile of logs burning in the middle of the clearing, glowing unnaturally bright under the moonlight. My stomach tightened. Fires this close to the lookout were dangerous, and being out here alone left me exposed. Grabbing my gear, I decided to investigate. The hike down was tense. Every snap of a twig underfoot made me jump, every rustle in the trees felt deliberate. When I finally reached the clearing, I froze. The bonfire wasn't alone. Next to it were scattered notebooks, wet from recent rain, their pages filled with coded entries, diagrams of forest grids, and notes about unauthorized activity and subjects under observation. I flipped one open and my stomach sank. Someone was using this forest for secret operations, and I had stumbled straight into the evidence. A soft hum suddenly filled the air. My flashlight flickered, and I noticed a metallic glint from a small device partially hidden in the underbrush. Cameras. They were tracking me. Panic rose like bile in my throat. Whoever had set up this operation had eyes on me, maybe knew I was there before I even saw the fire. I grabbed a notebook to keep as proof and started back up the trail, but the feeling of being watched grew heavier with every step. Halfway up, I heard something moving in the trees, too deliberate to be wildlife. Shadows darted between trunks, keeping just out of sight, and the wind carried a faint whisper of metal sliding over wood. My heart hammered. The lookout tower, usually a sanctuary, suddenly felt like a trap. I pushed myself faster, the notebooks pressing into my chest, my flashlight cutting through the darkness in frantic sweeps. I had to get back before whoever was watching decided to make their presence known. By the time I reached the stairs of the tower, the forest was deathly quiet again. My relief lasted barely a moment before a new fear gripped me. The notebook I had tucked under my arm was gone. In its place, the page I had glanced at earlier was now lying on the stair, ink fresh, as if it had been rewritten. "You shouldn't have seen this." I froze, every muscle locked in terror. The lookout, which had always felt like mine, suddenly seemed alien. I tried the radio, hoping to reach the ranger on duty, but only static answered me. My mind raced. Whoever was operating in the forest didn't want anyone here, and they had prepared this trail, this tower, to catch intruders. My only option was to leave, but where could I go? Every direction led deeper into the trees, and I had no idea if cameras or worse were tracking me now. A faint scratching noise drew my attention to the hatch beneath the tower floor, one I had ignored in the past. My curiosity, mingled with terror, forced me to peek inside. Narrow stairs descended into darkness, wet footprints still glistening on the steps. I shined my flashlight down. The cellar wasn't deep, but inside were more notebooks, files, and small metal boxes. Each page contained meticulous records, names, coordinates, notes about trials, and observations. Whoever was running this had been operating for years without detection. Then I heard the unmistakable click of a camera turning somewhere above me. Someone was watching from the tower, even as I crouched below. My flashlight illuminated a figure slipping into the shadows outside. I bolted back up, adrenaline fueling every step. Outside, the forest seemed to have changed. Every tree looked like it was bending, stretching just enough to hide movement. I ran, following the faint trail back to the ranger station, but the path felt endless, and I kept glancing over my shoulder. Shadows moved in ways animals never would. When I reached the station, relief turned to horror. The door was wide open. Inside, it was empty, papers scattered, radios ripped from the wall. The ranger was gone. My gut told me what had happened. The same operation that had been running these illegal surveillance activities had likely taken him. I realized I had narrowly avoided the same fate. I didn't wait. I sprinted down the service road until I reached the nearest highway, where I flagged down a passing vehicle and called the authorities. Weeks of investigation turned up nothing, no trace of the secret operation, no sign of the ranger. The forest returned to its quiet state, but I knew the truth. The lookout wasn't abandoned, and someone, or something, was still monitoring the woods. Every time I close my eyes, I see the flickering bonfire, the metallic glint of hidden cameras, and the notebooks filled with secrets too dangerous to ever touch again. I never returned to that forest, and I never will. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the faint hum of surveillance cameras and feel the eyes of someone, or something, watching from the shadows, waiting for the next person foolish enough to stumble across their secrets. I didn't plan on stopping at the fire lookout that morning. I was hiking through the backwoods of Cedar Ridge, following an old trail I thought led to a creek I wanted to camp near. My pack was light, my dog, Scout, trotting ahead, sniffing every tree. But when I crested the last ridge, I saw it, a tower rising above the tree line, its white paint peeling and its windows dark. Nothing in any guidebook mentioned it, and no map showed a trail leading straight to it. Something about its sudden presence made my stomach twist. Scout barked, and I followed the narrow path toward the structure. The closer I got, the more I noticed that it wasn't as abandoned as it looked. The ground around it was worn, like someone had walked the area recently, and one corner of the tower had a metal hatch slightly ajar. Inside, the cabin smelled of dust and rust, but there was also something else, clean, antiseptic almost, like someone had been here yesterday. That's when I saw them, notebooks and loose sheets of paper scattered across a small metal desk in the corner. The pages were filled with strange codes, diagrams of forest grids, and notes about unauthorized subjects being monitored. One page even had a small, crude map of the surrounding mountains with certain coordinates circled in red. My gut tightened. This was no abandoned lookout. It was some kind of secret surveillance post. Before I could process it, a soft hum started somewhere beneath the floor. I looked down and noticed a hidden panel, partially open, revealing steps descending into darkness. Scout growled, his hackles raised. Then, faint clicks echoed around the tower, like cameras swiveling, tracking my every movement. I froze, suddenly aware that I wasn't alone. Whoever had set this up had been watching, maybe still was. A line in one notebook ran across the page in bold ink. "Do not leave this tower alive if seen." My heart pounded. I hadn't come this far to run, but for the first time, I understood how real the danger could be. I forced myself to take a careful step toward the hatch, but Scout's low growl stopped me. From below, I could hear the faint scraping of metal, like someone was moving equipment down there. I shined my flashlight toward the opening and saw muddy footprints on the first steps, wet and fresh. My mind raced. The storm that had rolled in earlier left the forest dark and silent, but the sense of being watched was overpowering. I wasn't imagining it. Then I heard it, a faint metallic thud from behind me. I spun, flashlight shaking, and saw movement in the tree-line. Shadows shifted unnaturally, too tall to be a deer or bear. Panic surged through me. Scout barked sharply, and I grabbed him, bolting for the stairs. My boots slipped on the wet wood, and I'd barely made it outside. The wind picked up, carrying the soft hum of machinery from beneath the tower, and my gut told me those footsteps in the cellar hadn't stopped. As I ran down the trail, I kept glancing over my shoulder. The moonlight caught something, figures emerging from the tree-line, silhouetted against the storm clouds. They didn't run, didn't call out, but their cameras glinted in the dim light. I realized this was bigger than I imagined. Someone was conducting illegal surveillance here, maybe for years, and I had wandered straight into it. The notebooks, the cellar, the coordinates, they were all evidence of operations I wasn't supposed to see. By the time I reached the creek and set up a small tent, I felt the weight of it pressing down. Every rustle of leaves made me jump. Every snapping branch sounded like a footstep. I couldn't shake the certainty that those watching weren't done tracking me. The tower wasn't abandoned. The forest wasn't empty. And if I ever went back, I'd be stepping into a trap far more dangerous than I had imagined. That night I didn't sleep. Scout stayed close, ears perked, growling at the dark. I kept my flashlight ready, my backpack zipped tight around the notebooks I had stuffed inside in a moment of morbid curiosity. I knew one thing: whatever secrets the lookout held, someone, or something, was still out there, and it wasn't going to let me walk away untouched.